everybody, it is Dean Z speaking to you from Hutchins Hall, room 250. Today I want to talk to you about artificial intelligence, or ChatGPT, because it is very much in the news. In fact, I have been thinking about this issue since last winter, when ChatGPT really broke on the scene in a big way. And I and members of my staff have been experimenting with ChatGPT and how well it does at generating essays, and other experimentation too that I'll get into in a bit. And I went to a presentation on it at an annual conference for admissions work, and I've just been thinking a lot about it, and not in a, the anti-technology Luddite, oh my God, the world is coming to an end sense, but thinking about how is this going to affect our work, and what is the right approach to take. So when it came time this year to update our application and redraft it, I added language into our certification about ChatGPT. I'm going to read that to you, but I did not, when I did this, think I was doing anything particularly surprising or outrageous, but I've been very, I did not predict that it would get the amount of interest it has, and I've had a number of interview requests, and there's been a number of articles written about Michigan banning ChatGPT, which is a little bit of an overstatement. So let's just get into the specifics to begin about what we are saying. So in our certification, we have always said that, if you apply, you have to certify that this is true. I certify that the thoughts and words contained in my personal statement and essays are my own, and that no one assisted in the creation of my personal statement and essays beyond basic proofreading or a general critique of my work. No one has ever thought that was a strange thing to say. No one has ever objected to it. No one has ever pushed back on that, and everybody seems to understand what is intended by that. This year I added, I have not used ChatGPT or other artificial intelligence tools as part of my drafting process. To me, adding that was an attempt to say, humans aren't supposed to help you, and also technology is not supposed to help you beyond sort of basic assistance. Like, obviously technology is involved in, say, spell check, or the little blue squiggly lines that Word puts under a phrase if it's misused, or Grammarly is a tool that people use. Those all seem completely fine to me, but they are, to me, a far cry from having someone else or something else actually give you a first draft. And that is what my concern is. Why is that my concern? Well, first you have to ask, what is the point of even asking for any essay? What is an admissions office hoping to achieve through this? One, we are hoping to get a sense of your writing. To some extent, that is a testament to your thinking, right? Like how you put something together. But to some, it's just a testament to technical writing ability. And then the other thing we get from it is knowledge about you and your background. Using ChatGPT or other artificial intelligence, and I'm just going to say ChatGPT going forward because I know there are other large language models, but life is short and I can't just keep saying all those words over and over. Okay, so using ChatGPT interrupts or disrupts both of those goals from my point of view. Depending on the prompt, you might find that the ChatGPT is either completely not including anything interesting about your life, or hallucinating and making things up about your life. And of course, in general, the problem that we have found in our experiments with using ChatGPT to generate essays is that the essays tend to be very similar to each other, regardless of the prompts and regardless of the people giving the prompts, and also very bland. So either you have the problem of the hallucinations and making you more interesting, perhaps, than you are, or at least inaccurately interesting, and then you have the problem of not having any information. So in my experiments, again, we've come up with essays that we feel, my first readers and I feel like, are not the kind of essays that will get you into Michigan Law School. The product is not good. So I think if I thought it was very helpful to applicants, I don't know, I might have a different approach to how I would want to regulate this or control it. But I don't think it's doing anyone any favors, so I don't have any hesitation about this is bad for applicants if I say don't use it. Now, of course, I think everyone who uses it, or most people who use it, will think, well, now I get the first draft and then I will, work on it from there. In my experience I've been a heavy editor for 30 years in various contexts, more than that maybe. And I would say that if you start with something that isn't very good, it is hard to really make it great over time, even with many iterations of editing. It is hard to excise turns of phrase that you don't like or that seem artificial or unnatural to you. It is hard to inject language that is more your style. It takes many, many iterations when you're starting with a product that you don't like to get it where you want. And frankly, if you're going to do all that work of editing, you'd probably have been much better off just starting with your own thoughts. So that is why I have taken this approach. Now I know, what are the critiques? One is, okay, this just comes from a fear of technology, and there's no holding it back. Resistance is futile, and Michigan Law School, you are sticking your head in the sand. To a certain extent, I do agree that technology will continue to expand and resistance is futile. But I will also say we're at a very early stage with this particular technology, and I do not think that the rule that we have put in place this year will necessarily be the rule we want 10 years from now, maybe not even next year. I don't know. We have to keep an eye on things. But I think it is important for leveling the playing field. Some people are going to be very good at ChatGPT, perhaps. Some people won't be using it at all. And I guess I could have gone the route of saying, check here if you use it versus if you don't use it. But in my experience, people don't like that kind of approach because they feel like it's a little bit of a trick, like they don't trust us. Like maybe if I check that I use ChatGPT, they just won't read it. So I didn't think that was good, and I toyed with that idea. But I think it's important for everybody to be submitting essays that have been generated in roughly similar ways. Now, one critique is that, well, people use consultants, and maybe you tell them that they should be not heavily edited or letting other people draft them, but they do. I suppose that is true, honestly. I don't think it's a lot of people, but it is probably true. And I like to think that we pick up on that because of inconsistencies between the essay and other parts of the application. But I have to be humble about recognizing that it is likely not completely true. But that's sort of the point, right? I also think that some people are going to cheat and use ChatGPT. I am telling you, this is our standard. This is what we expect. You are certifying that you are agreeing with it if you apply. And if an applicant is a liar and a cheat, well, that is the burden that we have to deal with. But I do think that setting our expectations clearly and straightforwardly is the important thing to do. I am well aware that many law schools are not going to take a position one way or another because they feel uninformed. I think that is unfair. I think it is much better. For one law school that I am aware of, ASU, has affirmatively come out and said, we welcome your use of ChatGPT. They have a different view of things than I do, but I think that is a completely helpful thing to do and to say for the applicant's point of view. Like, just say what you're expecting, and that's the way to go. Another critique I think that people have of our approach is people in legal practice are going to use ChatGPT, so why not let applicants do it? Okay, well, people in legal practice also have paralegals draft their work or young associates, and we also don't allow that. When you are producing something for a judge or an opposing counsel or whatever it is, they don't care. They don't care how it was produced. What they care about is it clear and is it accurate? They aren't judging your writing ability. They don't, you could be a terrible writer who has good employees, and that's fine with them. But that's not what we are doing. We are judging your writing. So that is why I don't feel like that is a reasonable critique. Okay, then the other thing that I want to talk about when it comes to AI is the use of AI by admissions offices, which we put out a call on Twitter, or whatever that app is now supposed to be called. I honestly don't know. I'm giving up on it. But we put out a call on Twitter a while ago asking people what are your questions about AI? And the only person who wrote in was asking, what are admissions offices going to do? Because, the person's presumption was this has the capacity to lighten your workload, but perhaps only by compromising the way we approach the work. And I thought that was very interesting as a question. And I will say, we did experiment with ChatGPT also as a tool for helping answer email, either the sort of standard issue questions or the more difficult questions. And we found it really wasn't an advantage. The standard issue questions are ones we've answered so frequently, we can do them in our sleep, so plugging it into ChatGPT is not an advantage. And then the more difficult one-off questions, that just requires a lot of thought and human touch by us. So we're not using it for email. And then I think there is some idea that you could use it for actually assessing the applications. And I'll be honest, I don't understand how that would work. But if it did, I still wouldn't do it. And that might be a Luddite impulse on my part. I do truly believe that humans are better at judging humans than machines are at judging humans. And I hope that in the future, my AI overlords do not assassinate me for having expressed that opinion. I'm sure they're very wise. But for now, I'm going to put my faith in my first readers and in my assistant directors and in me in making these decisions. So we will not be utilizing any AI in our day-to-day work. All right, I think that is all I have to say about AI and ChatGPT at this moment. But thanks to everybody who did reach out and ask questions. Because we've gotten a couple emails in response to our certification stuff that were interesting and thought-provoking. So I appreciate everybody's input, and I'd love to hear more. So as always, if you have questions about this topic or any other, please email us at law.jd.admissions@umich.edu or add it to the comments below. And wherever you go, go blue.